Hi, I'm Mrs. Klein with the Council on Chemical Abuse, and welcome back to Clear and Present Danger. Today is part two, so let's get right to it. So this is part two of Clear and Present Danger, a prescription for heroin. So let's review real quick from part one. So part one, we talked all about medication safety. We talked about how to prevent misuse. We talked about, why people misuse and some alternatives to misusing. And most importantly, in part one, we talked all about the why addiction develops, which has to do with the chemical that is released when we feel pleasure, which is dopamine. In part two, we're going to take a journey. We're going to take a journey of addiction, specifically to prescription pain medicine and how that leads to an addiction to heroin and how the two are connected. But before we do that, it's very important that we understand the media story in how they show us drug use in our culture and the stigma or the stereotypes regarding those who suffer from a substance use disorder or addiction. The media makes drug use look fun, and it normalizes unhealthy behavior, especially for teenagers. In the movies and music and television, teenagers are portrayed as impulsive risk takers who party all the time and get into trouble. It's sort of like a rite of passage. They also show, though they don't show the consequences a lot of time to that behavior. They don't show the other side of that, and which can be addiction and the devastation that it can have on the lives of not just teenagers, but their families as well. The media also gives us images of what like typical addicts look like, or those who suffer from a substance use disorder. They're poor or homeless, weak, bad people, and they use words such as junkie. But this isn't the reality. And today I want to show you the real story of addiction. And it's important that you understand and know the difference between what the media shows us and the truth. Again, we're going to be specific and we're going to talk about opioids, right? And if you remember from part one, right, we talked about prescription pain medicine, okay? Any substance that comes from the poppy plant, the opium poppy plant, is labeled as an opioid, right? When we talk about prescription opioids, they're the depressants. Remember, they're slowing down the way the brain functions, and they do serve a medical purpose, right? Which is to block pain. Some examples are OxyContin, Vicodin, Percocet. What they all have in common is morphine, right? Morphine is a substance or that chemical that is found naturally in the poppy plant. So it would be like nicotine is found in tobacco, right? THC found in marijuana. Morphine is found naturally in the opium poppy plant. How opioids affect the body? Well, we said they're depressants, right? So they are slowing down the way the body functions. There's drowsiness, decreased heart rate, respiration. It's putting the brain to sleep. And opioids create that euphoria, right? Do you know what euphoria is? That extreme state of happiness, that high that people feel, right? That's making them feel good. If it didn't feel good, people then wouldn't want to use them and then abuse them. All right, so let's go on this journey of addiction. So I want us to do this together. Normally, when we do this presentation in person, I take us through a journey of two teenagers, and we read little stories as we go along, and how this addiction develops for them. But because we're here and things are different, I want you to kind of create your own story, all right? I want you to think about why someone would use prescription pain medication and who would use it, right? So just knowing, why would somebody use it? Maybe because they had surgery, right? They have their wisdom teeth pulled. Let's talk about like teenagers, right? Maybe they had their wisdom teeth pulled, or maybe they got injured, right? Playing sports. Athletes, a lot of times experience injuries and, it comes with a lot of pain. So they may be prescribed a prescription pain medicine. Right? So athletes would use them. Regular people, maybe your mom, your dad, right? So the faces of people that use prescription pain medicine are everyday people. They're young adults, they're athletes, they're teenagers, they're me. That is my face there. I've been prescribed a prescription pain medicine. One time I fell and I broke my face, right? I was prescribed pain medicine to help me manage, to help me sleep. Older people. So the face of anybody who uses prescription pain medicine can be anybody, right? So let's pick one person. Let's pick maybe that athlete, and even a teenage athlete, right? In high school, whatever, sports are very important. They get injured. Why would that teenager misuse, right? So we know that teenagers may misuse, maybe they're at parties and pills are going around and they don't want to feel left out. So they, take a couple of pills. But a lot of times, we are prescribed prescription pain medicine for a legitimate purpose, right? So an athlete gets hurt, they are prescribed the pain medicine, and why would that athlete want to misuse? To get better, right? Maybe they want to heal faster. They want to play in the next game. So they think taking more of the pain medicine will help them work through the pain, right? And how would someone misuse it, right? Maybe they, instead of taking one pill, they're going to take two, right? And if we're talking people that are, regular, just like out partying or whatever, they may start by taking one pill, but and then at the next party, okay, I'll take another one, and they continue to use, right? If it is available to them. Same thing with athletes or anybody else who gets hurt or has like major surgery. They may take one or two more because, oh, I can't sleep at night. So that's how everything kind of starts. A lot of times it's not malicious. It's not trying to, oh, I want to get high. A lot of times people start to misuse because they don't feel good and they want to get better. So the next stop then in our journey here of addiction is something called tolerance. So somebody may start to misuse, right? Let's go back to our athlete or whoever you have in your mind. They start to misuse for whatever reason. And after a while, when we talk about tolerance, it's using the substance over and over again, but eventually the body's going to get used to it. So they don't feel the same way. So the athlete maybe is, starting to take two pills. Well, the pain comes back. Those two pills worked for a little bit, but now it's not working anymore. So what do they need to do? They need to take more. Same way, even if, kids are trying to get high, they may be taking, a couple pills at a party. Eventually those pills won't work. So they have to increase the amount of they're taking. So this is the first step really on developing that addiction, because they're going to continue to use more and more because to feel that high. What is happening? This picture here is showing you like normal activity. You have opioid receptors in your brain naturally. You release certain endorphins when you like bang your knee against the table. You'll release those to help you manage that pain. So you have natural opioid receptors in your body. So what happens with an opioid user, eventually it blocks all the receptors, okay? So they're not feeling high anymore. Those receptors are already blocked. So it's like constantly trying to get more and more in order to kind of feel, that same effect. All right. So from then that tolerance, eventually that person that you have in your mind, that athlete or, that parent or that teenager, that person that you have in your mind, they're going to start to experience withdrawal. Say the athlete no longer can get any more pills, or, the person who had surgery and, started to take a little bit more, and now they can't get any more pills. So when that drug is taken away, they experience withdrawal. It's the sickness somebody feels when the drug starts to leave their body. Let's think like caffeine, like people that drink a lot of coffee. Take like your parents or even yourself, right? If you're a coffee drinker. I know a lot of teenagers are into the special coffee drinks. With caffeine, when it starts to deplete from the body, so you go to sleep and you wake up, and how do people feel before they have their morning coffee? Maybe they're crabby or grouchy or tired. They get caffeine, right? That stimulant, and it wakes them up. And then maybe midday, caffeine depletes from the body, a little sluggish, they have some more, right? So when we talk about prescription pain medicine, it's that same concept, but 10 times worse. What will happen then is the body starts to become dependent on that drug. Anytime the drug depletes from the body, they feel withdrawal and they get very, very sick. So dependency just means that now it's not about, I'm not taking this pill because I don't want to feel pain anymore, or I want to get high anymore. Now I need to take this pill in order to feel normal because the body is dependent on it. So there's that physical now, that physical addiction, as well as the mental part of the addiction. So when we talk about withdrawal, here are some withdrawal symptoms. Going through withdrawal from an opioid or prescription pain medicine is like having the flu, but like times it by 1,000, right? So there's agitation, anxiety, muscle aches, increased tearing, insomnia, runny nose, sweating, nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramp, diarrhea, dilated pupils, and goosebumps. We had the beginning, right? Everyday people taking prescription pain medicine, and their intentions weren't anything to get high or whatever. It was just to, to get better. So we see that beginning and we see that building of the tolerance, and then experience the withdrawal and the dependency, and eventually this addiction to the prescription pain medicine. So let's talk about heroin real quick. So with heroin, it is a depressant. It contains morphine. So that means that heroin is an opioid, right? Prescription pain medicine and heroin, they are both opioids. Heroin creates that euphoria, probably on a little bit more of a level than the prescription pain medicine, but it creates that euphoria, clouded thinking, the drowsiness, everything is slowing down. It's a depressant, so it's putting the brain to sleep. Heroin can be smoked, injected, or snorted. On this journey of addiction, we see a progression for many people that have become addicted to their pain medicine. They then switch to heroin. So why would somebody progress to heroin? Why do you think that happens? Probably one of the biggest reasons is money. Trying to get prescription pain medicine is very difficult and very expensive, where heroin is much cheaper. So heroin right now is cheaper than getting like a 6-pack of beer or a pack of smokes. And then it's about the withdrawal. Heroin and prescription pain medicine are the same thing. They affect the body the same way. That heroin then will help to stop the withdrawal. So when people become addicted to their pain medicine and they're sick and they're going through withdrawal, and it just takes one time for somebody to say to them, hey, why don't you try this? This will help you. So it could be anybody that could not take very long to become addicted to the pain medicine. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. There's not one specific type person, okay? So misusing the prescription pain medicine can, not always, but can lead to this addiction to heroin. 80% of heroin users started with prescription painkillers. Most people don't wake up one day and say, today's a good day to try heroin, right? It's not the type of drug. It's usually a drug that people are addicted to something else before trying it. And 80% of heroin users started out with prescription painkillers. So it's about understanding and breaking that connection and really being mindful. I'm not saying don't ever take pain medicine, right? It's there, it serves a purpose for us. But it's very important to use it as it is prescribed. If the pain is still unmanageable, we need to call the doctor. And again, when we talked about those dopamine levels, right? I know people who, they said the first time they ever took a pain pill, it was the best experience of their life. It's like, wow. I know other people that have taken pain medicine, myself included, that we get sick, right? So everybody's different. So you never know how the body is going to react. So you must be very, very careful. All right, so next on our journey of addiction then is overdose. Now, not everybody who uses obviously overdoses, but it is a real possibility. People can overdose from using heroin, even their pain pills, okay? An overdose is just an excessive dose of the drug, right? The body can't break down the chemical fast enough, and somebody can get very sick, but it can result in death. Some warning signs that somebody is experiencing an overdose: could be pale, clammy, body goes limp, turns blue, vomiting. They could be unconscious. The breathing could slow down or stop. The heart can slow down and stop. That pinpoint pupils, right? Looking into somebody's eyes is a very good way to kind of see the drug a person may be using. Okay? Pinpoint pupils usually means that they're using the depressants. Real big, huge pupils is usually like a stimulant. Obviously, like red eyes, usually THC. So the eyes are a good sign of what may be going on. And then the person could be unresponsive to pain. Now, it is also good just to keep in mind, if you're out at a party and you think that somebody may be experiencing overdose, not maybe even to, pills or heroin or even alcohol, it's very important to get them help. Don't leave them alone. Don't, try and like roll them over and let them sleep it off. There is a law called the Good Samaritan law, which states that if you call and get somebody help, you won't get in trouble yourself. You call 911 and you stay there. So maybe you've been drinking too or something. It's okay. It's okay because we want people to be able to get the help that they need. So what causes an overdose? I think it's important to know this as well. So obviously, if you're looking at this picture here, you see heroin, carfentanil, and fentanyl. Carfentanil and fentanyl are known as synthetic opioids, which means that they don't necessarily contain morphine. They don't come from the opium poppy plant. They are created with chemicals to create an opioid-like result and effect in the person. But they're very, very powerful. So carfentanil is actually like an elephant tranquilizer. So if you see that little dot there, that can be a lethal dose of carfentanil. This couple of specks in there is fentanyl. So fentanyl is like 100 times more powerful than heroin. Carfentanil is about 1,000 times more powerful. That's why it's good to know if you ever see like a needle on the ground, anywhere, if you're ever out, playground, out on the street or wherever, never pick them up. Tell an adult or, someone in authority, if you touch these chemicals with your bare hands, it could result in you getting very sick. A lot of times people are getting heroin and it is maybe mixed with fentanyl. That could obviously lead to an overdose, right? A lot of times they're getting their chemicals, their drugs are mixed with other drugs, and it's causing them obviously to experience an overdose. Now, the second reason why people overdose, and I mentioned this before, we have natural opioid receptors in our body, right? So whenever we feel pain, we hurt ourselves, we'll release those endorphins to kind of help us manage that pain. Where these opioid receptors are in your spinal cord, your central nervous system there to help manage pain. They're in your midbrain. Dopamine release is at usually 1,000 times more than the body needs, right? When somebody uses an opioid, whether it's prescription pain medicine or heroin's going to release dopamine in much large quantity in that midbrain where addiction develops. So an addiction to an opioid can happen rather quickly if somebody is not careful. Lastly, they're in our brainstem, right? So I said in part one, your brain is not fully developed until we're mid-20s, right? The only part of your brain that needs to be fully functional at birth is your brainstem, your medulla oblongata, that part where the brain and the spinal cord connect, because it's responsible for like breathing, respiration, your body temperature, and things like that. There's opioid receptors there. So what is happening is when they connect there, it's slowing down the breathing. It's slowing down the heart rate. If too much of the drug is taken, then it will slow it down to the point where the heart and the breathing will stop completely. However, there is a medication called Naloxone, or you might have heard the term Narcan. And what it does, this medication reverses the effects of a opioid overdose. So what happens is Narcan or Naloxone comes along and it pushes the opioid out of the receptor. And it'll like throw the person into like an instant withdrawal. They'll wake up. But if it is administered in time, this can save people's lives. So another reason why it's important to call 911, if you think somebody is experiencing an overdose. Continuing on our journey, we're finally coming to the end of our journey, and that's consequences. Everybody who becomes, anybody who develops a substance use disorder, an addiction, doesn't matter if it's alcohol or marijuana, prescription pain medicine, heroin, there will be consequences. And they may not, see those consequences immediately, but eventually they will be there. So who's going to experience consequences? Anybody. everyone with addiction. It will eventually make their life unmanageable. And those consequences, if we're talking teenagers, they range from getting in trouble in school and losing your friends and your family. People, they become homeless, they lose their jobs, they may be arrested, and there's legal fees and medical fees. The consequences are endless and vary from person to person, but the ultimate consequence then could be death. I want to review real quick this journey of addiction, right? We had that beginning. People use prescription pain medicines for all different and legitimate reasons. Then we see them starting to, if they start to misuse, they can build that tolerance, the withdrawal, the dependency, that addiction to it, both physical and the mental addiction. Then for many, that progression to heroin, because they're the same thing. And when people are withdrawing from their pain medicine, heroin can help, and it's cheaper. Some people will experience that overdose, and then obviously the consequences. I want you to remember two things about this journey. Anyone can become addicted. There is not one specific type of person that will become addicted to any substance, right? It can happen to anybody. And then addiction is not a moral failing. People who suffer from an addiction are not bad people. Maybe they made some choices that led them to addiction, but it is not their fault. Nobody wants to be addicted. It's not a choice then that they make for themselves, because if they could, they would make it better. And they can get better. Talk about that. But first, let's talk about, death, because it is a real thing and it happens, unfortunately. Over 130 people in the U.S. die of an opioid overdose every day. In 2018, 85 people in Berks County died of a drug overdose. In 2019, it went up to 127 people died of a drug overdose. So far in August 2020, we're at 84 people, almost the same amount we had the whole year of 2018. But let's talk about the bright side. There's hope, there's recovery. Hopefully, people will see this part of it. And unfortunately, with an addiction to heroin and things like, a lot of times people don't see this part of it because unfortunately they will die from, their addiction. But no, for many, and like in the US, I think there's like almost 24 million people are in recovery, right? Not just from prescription pain medicines, but from all different types of drugs. And it's a new beginning for this person. It's a change that they make in their life. Their life is now self-directed, which means drugs and alcohol aren't directing their life. They are directing their life. They can live it to the fullest potential. Usually at this point I show a video, but if we were in person, I would do that. But I just wanted to show you like the faces of people in recovery and what they look like, not just famous people. Usually I show famous people, but these are people look, there's some famous. Eminem's got 11 years clean, and Zac Efron's got like 6 years clean, and Samuel L. Jackson's got, I think, almost 30 years clean. So there are many more famous people that, are open about their addiction and their sobriety. But then there's regular everyday people. My aunt, but this is the guy in the blue shirt is my husband. My best friend growing up, girl in the red hair, coworkers that I've had the pleasure to work with. Recovery is beautiful and it can happen. Addiction can happen to anybody, but there's hope because people can get better and they can recover. The media portrays teenagers in a certain way. This stereotype of what they can do and what they're supposed to do, this rite of passage, but change the script, be better. We know that most teenagers are not out using and partying and getting in trouble. Most teenagers are staying drug-free and they're doing great, beautiful things with their life. They're having fun, they're volunteering, they're able to score 1,000 points over their career in basketball or win trophy, support causes, whether it's for equality for all people or whatever. Kids are out there and they're doing it and they're making a difference. So I wanted you to keep that in mind and to remember, change the script and go beyond what the media kind of shows teenagers to be. Here are some resources if you need help, whether it's for you, a family member, or friend. You can talk to your parents, right? Or talk to friends. There's a student assistance program. at school. There's guidance counselors, there's nurse, doctors, pastors, counselors, and you can get information at our website, cocaburks.org. All right, again, unfortunately, we're not in person for me to answer any questions, but if you have questions, you may email me at aklein@cocaburks.org. Excellent. So thank you so much for tuning into part 1 and part 2 of Clear and Present Danger. I hope that you walked away with a little bit more knowledge. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me at aklein@cocaburks.org.